Good morning. I am Donna Lynch. I am a peer partner wraparound specialist with the Resource Center for Family Focused Practice, and we are so happy you are joining us here this morning. It is 9 o'clock on the dot, and there was probably 42 of you in the waiting room all ready to roll. So I was really excited to see that. We are going to wait just a few moments so people can register, come on in, get their technology going, and make sure that we're already prepared for our webinar this morning, Coaching and Wraparound, Strengthening Staff and Strengthening Outcomes. We're really excited today. So just a few minutes, if you need to grab some coffee, some water, some tea, this is the time. We've got a few minutes before we're going to start. If you're just popping on, my name is Donna Lynch, and I'm with the RCFFP, or Resource Center for Family Focused Practice. I'm really trying to get away from acronyms like all the time. So you will hear me say all of the words, and I'm really trying to practice and role model for our community because we get lost in the sauce when it comes to those acronyms, for sure. We will start in just a few minutes. If you have any technology issues, we have the incomparable James Williams with us today. He is our tech guru master. Side quest him. That is our language for like send a DM, just do a little side quest, and James will help you. If at any time your camera or your sound is not working, a really great trick for Zoom is to just log out and log back in. And I don't know why, but that seems to rectify the issue for you. So you can go ahead and do that. I see a lot of people. Mr. Chella, good morning. How are you? Good to see you. Awesome. Tina, how's it going? And some new faces. Frederick, good morning. Catherine Basemore, I feel like I see you. Well, I've seen you 3 times in the last 3 weeks. You look gorgeous. That color is amazing on your skin. I love it. All right. One more time. My name is Donna Lynch, and I'm with the Resource Center for Family Focused Practice. You've joined us on this Monday morning on April 28th for our webinar series. We are doing coaching and wraparound, strengthening staff, and strengthening outcomes. We have 2 amazing presenters today who I don't think anybody has ever seen before. So you will have such a sweet treat in store for you. I would like to start off with some housekeeping. Today's session is being recorded. So if you know anybody in your organization or county who is unable to be here, it will be on our website in a few short weeks, and that usually comes out to about 6. Once it's on our website, you will have access to the PDF version of the PowerPoint. We will be dropping that in the chat for you today as well. Along with the webinar recording and all of the materials, please feel free at any time while you're listening to Rebecca and Annabelle today. If you have any questions, we are asking you to drop them in chat. I will be collecting them for you, and we will address as many as we can during the Q&A segment. I would now like to pass it over to my dear friend, Janine LeSueur at the California Department of Social Services, the Family Center Practice Unit, to get us started. Good morning, Janine.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Okay.
All good to go.
Okay. As Donna said, I'm with the California Department of Social Services, and I'm happy to be here, and I want to welcome everyone as well. With our webinar today, our shared work is a commitment to strengthening and aligning our high fidelity wraparound practices across the state. And by working together, we're building stronger and more unified approach that honors the core values and builds a stronger, more unified approach to wraparound throughout California. And it helps empowers our teams and our family serving systems across the regions to collaborate and to deliver an even greater support for our families that we serve. This effort is a result of the strong partnership between CDSS, California Department of Social Services, in collaboration with our Wraparound Steering Committee, the Resource Center for Family Focused Practice, and many dedicated community partners throughout California. We've developed the California Wraparound standards. We're so proud of them. These standards promote consistent, high quality, family centered wraparound services statewide. And I think Donna is going to put that in the chat. To further support the implementation of these standards, we've launched the California Wraparound County Plan Approval and Provider Certification Portal. And this is the certification portal that we've been talking about for a while, and it is finally almost coming to fruition. So we're so happy. It's a streamlined tool that makes submitting and reviewing the county plans and provider certifications more efficient, while it ensures the alignment and at statewide expectations, and it maintains flexibility needed to meet the local community needs. We've provided resource document and the links in the chat, as I said. We recognize that counties and providers may have different policies and practices on their local needs. The California Wraparound Standards provides a common foundation and keeps us connected to the core values of wraparound, while allowing for the flexibility and innovation to meet the unique needs of each community. Which brings us to today's webinar topic. And it's an important one, coaching and wraparound, strengthening staff and strengthening outcomes. Coaching is more than supervision. It's intentional learning. It's an intentional learning strategy, and it fosters development, strengths of wraparound practices, enhances program overall implementation. And throughout this webinar, we'll explore the integrating coaching into your wraparound program, and it can build stronger teams, lead to improved service delivery for youth and families. And we're fortunate to be joined by two outstanding leaders and champions in the wraparound community. We have Annabelle Godoy. She has dedicated over 20 years to serving our vulnerable children and families, and she has a deep experience in both direct care and leadership roles across residential, in-home, and in-home service programs. Annabelle currently serves as the Wraparound Program Director for Olive Crest in the Inland Empire and as an instructor for the Resource Center for Family Focused Practice. She actively supports the wraparound community statewide as a member of the California Wraparound Advisory Committee, the Wraparound Steering Committee, and co-chair of both Data and Outcomes Work Group and the Southern California Wraparound Hub. And I don't know how she has time for all of this, but you're amazing. Next, we have Rebecca Cox, and she's a wraparound specialist at RCFFP and a seasoned wraparound trainer and consultant, and brings hands-on experience as a family specialist, facilitator, clinician, supervisor, trainer, and coach. So for over 15 years, she's been a strong voice in California's wraparound community, serving on the California Wraparound Advisory Committee, Steering Committee, and co-chairing both Fidelity Data and Outcomes Work Group and the Southern California Wraparound Hub. We're honored to have both Annabelle and Rebecca share their knowledge and insights into the real-world strategies with us today. So I want to hand it over to them and thank them for being here, and we're excited to hear what you have to share.
Thank you so much, Janine, for those introductions. That was great. I'm like listening, I'm like, oh yeah, I have done all those things. Way better introduction than I would have given myself.
Kind of a big deal, ma'am.
Still don't feel like it. We'll get there one day, maybe. All right. Well, Annabelle pulls up our PowerPoint that we have for you. I'll do just a little bit of the housekeeping. We have so this is, you're in a coaching wraparound. We're going to talk about coaching today. Spoiler alert, we have a bunch of classes on this that Annabelle and myself teach, and we'll be bringing other instructors along. I see some of them here in the webinar, so great. You guys get to teach this one day. So our expectations for today, we're asking that you just be present, limit those distractions. We're only here for 2 hours, so if you can be here, be present, be a part of this, all here together. We are asking that you use the chat if you have questions, comments. We love the interaction. We'd love to hear you. And we have a lot of content to get through today. So if questions, things come up, feel free to drop it in chat, make some things. We have a couple of interactions. And then at the very end, we'll leave some time for questions. So if you have anything you want to unmute and share, we'll save that for the very end. Obviously, stay on mute, participate when you can. Reactions are always great. Love the reactions. Hoping that you reflect and apply this to the work, right? You guys are spending 2 hours with us. Our hope is always that you're going to take away something, right? Hate for you to spend 2 hours on the screen with us and bounce, right? And then, as always, everybody's opinion, everybody's perspective matters in this space. You know, this is an equal, open, safe space for all, and we want to keep it that way as we go through our webinars. All right.
All right, let's kick it off. All right, guys, so before we start, we wanted to do something a little bit different today. Shout out to Kim Stokeham, who gave us some awesome feedback. This one's for you. Hope you're in the crowd right now. And if not, shout out to all the Contra Costa family, who's amazing. So we want to start off with something different. That's relevant to coaching. So just a small video clip, because just in Wraparound, just like in everything else, coaching isn't about fixing people. It's about shifting mindsets, building trust, and helping others lead themselves and lead each other, right? And think about it. That's the same thing that we're doing in Wraparound with the families that we serve every day, right? Trying to build trust, trying to coach, trying to change habits, trying to have transformational change. So I'm going to show you guys this really quick little scene from Remember the Titans. And it captures something really important about coaching, leadership, and growth. So as you watch it, kind of want you to just to reflect on what's happening beneath the words. What mindset shift do you see taking place in the scene? And what might this have to do with how we coach others in Wraparound? All right, here we go.
All right, get some water. Hey, wait your turn, boy. You call me what, crack?
Quit it, jerks! Come on, you're all acting like a bunch of sissies! Quit it!
All right, man, listen. I'm Gary, you're Julius. Let's get some particulars and just get this over with, all right?
Particulars.
Yeah.
No matter what I tell you, you ain't gonna never know nothing about
Hey,
me.
man, listen. I ain't running any more of these 3-a-days, okay?
Well, what I got to say, you really don't want to hear, because honesty ain't too high up on your people priority list, right?
Honesty? You want honesty? All right, honestly, I think you're nothing. Nothing but a pure waste of God-given talent. You don't listen to nobody, man. Not even Doc or Boone. Shiver push on the line every time, man. You blow right past them. Push them, pull them, do something. You can't run over everybody in this league. And every time you do, you leave one of your teammates hanging out to dry. Me in particular.
Why should I give a hoot about you? Huh? Or anybody else out there? You want to talk about a waste? You the captain, right?
Right.
Captain's supposed to be the leader, right?
Right.
You got a job?
I have a
you
job.
You been doing your job?
I've been doing my job.
Then why don't you tell your white buddies to block for Rev better? Because they have not blocked for him worth a plug nickel, and you know it. Nobody plays, yourself included. I'm supposed to wear myself out for the team? What team? No, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna look out for myself and I'm gonna get mine.
See, man, that's the worst attitude I ever heard.
Attitude reflect leadership, Captain.
All right. Make sure that it's paused. Take a quick moment just to reflect on how leadership and coaching, like how they showed up in that moment. Feel free to share your thoughts in the chat. What are some things that stood out to you?
Well, if you want people to change, you have to be willing to lead them to a change rather than demanding that they do it your way or you see a problem, they fix it, but there's no leadership happening.
Absolutely.
That movie is amazing. I love that movie. It shows you how teams can work, people can work to come together with different perspectives and different culture background, different way that they're raised and work together effectively to support each other.
Absolutely.
Yeah, seeing a lot of here like lead by example, the leadership's reflected, right? Obviously we have it on the slide, attitude reflects leadership.
As a coach, I've been coaching for over 50 years. And when I see opposites, my focus is to get everybody together and start outside of the sport, build relationships outside of the sports. I still do it every year. I take my team up in the mountains. We don't talk sports, we talk life. We get to know each other. We get to know about each other. I think it's important to have a relationship amongst yourself before you can build any type of structure. And so that's what I've done. And it's brought success. We've won lead every year, not because of talent, but because of relationship, knowing one another, caring about one another, even telling one another we love one another. It's been really different. And when I Remember the Titans, that's one of the things I look at is more raw coaching than actual coaching to me. And like I said, I've been doing this for a number of years. And so I have a deep perspective from when I started to where I am today. And I learn, I'm still learning every year. I look to learn in my next season coming. We start in the month of May. I'm looking forward to that learning process of getting to know new players, new families, new people. I think that's the thing about life that makes it what it can be, is being willing to learn.
Yes, and I saw some of the comments in the chat too, right? Like think about it. And think about in all the roles that we're in Wraparound, not just as supervisors or leaders, but even in our direct service roles, right? It's not about telling people what to do, telling staff what to do, telling caregivers or telling youth what to do. It's about challenging a mindset, creating accountability, and helping others see something differently, right? And yes, a lot of that happens through leadership, but it's such a mindset shift. Today, we're going to dig into how coaching is done, when it's done intentionally, and how it's basically one of the most powerful ways we can support our staff in their growth and in their journey with high fidelity wraparound. Coaching isn't supervision. It isn't fixing. It isn't managing, right? It's helping people grow in their own leadership, in their own confidence, and their voice. And when we coach well, attitudes shift, leadership skill sets grow, and ultimately what's really, really important to us is outcomes improve. We see good outcomes with families.
I am seeing so many good comments in the chat. It's making my heart happy. And all these themes in here, about us having trust, about relationship building, about teaming, right? These are all these elements of coaching. So what we're going to talk about today a little bit is just defining that role of coaching. What is coaching? What do we mean when we talk about coaching? We're going to identify some key components of coaching. We'll talk about the GROW model and the SBI models. We'll describe how coaching supports staff growth and leads to improved outcomes for youth and families. And we're going to recognize common coaching barriers. So what are some of those things that we struggle with? Annabelle and I will try to sprinkle in some stories or, insights that we've gained over the years and just how you guys can integrate some of these things in our everyday practice. All right. So Donna has been super great about dropping our wraparound standards links and access in the chat. So this is a part of our wraparound standards, is to have a coaching role, a required role. So on the slide, real quick summary of what's in the standards around roles, right? You got to have some rigorous hiring practices, meaningful performance assessments, job descriptions that actually reflect best practice and skills and expertise, clear expectations of a performance. And then we have these 7 required roles here. And one of those roles being a wraparound fidelity coach. I'm saying roles, it also says functions there. So this can be a person, like everybody has their own separate role, or you can combine these roles. It doesn't, not every single one of these has to be a separate person on the on your staff, right? You can combine. And so today we're going to talk a lot about coaches and supervisors, because oftentimes our supervisors are doing some level of coaching. I'm going to call out as well that coaching and wraparound, we talk about coaching when we speak to fidelity coaching a lot, right? And so fidelity coaching and wraparound is a piece of the coaching component, right? There's so much more that goes on to it. It's not just about going and observing a CFT and saying, hey, what's your family voice and choice? I want to see this. Or, hey, you didn't bring out your mission statement. I didn't see it visible, right? It's really about this process and using a structured model for coaching. And we're going to talk about that a lot here today. And so just throwing that out there, like that we're talking about this bigger coaching sort of role and standard. I'm going to make a quick note that these are the standards as they are right now. They are currently being reviewed by the state. So CDSS, California Department of Social Services, and Department of Healthcare Services, DHCS, are currently reviewing these together right now. And so these might change a little bit. You'll notice that on the website, the things that we've dropped so far say draft. Also, if you go to the wraparound certification portal, you'll find these standards in there. You'll find some checklist items. We say these are what organizations need to hit to get certified or counties to get approved for high fidelity wraparound in California. That is under construction as well. So you can go in, you can create a profile, you can go look at these things. But just know that once this actually, the all county letter comes out and all of this goes live and is finalized, we will wipe that portal and start fresh again, right? So, but I highly encourage you to go get the information now and start looking at it and start thinking about it if you haven't already. And regardless of your role. So if you're running a program, you're going to need to know that because you need to do the work of the certification if you're going to go for certification. But if you're in this training today and you're a peer partner, you're a facilitator, you're just looking for those leadership skills, go in there, check out the wraparound standards, because the wraparound standards tell you exactly what we should be doing as wraparound teams, right? It will walk you through exactly what you should be doing with your youth and families. All right. Let's get a quick poll. Annabelle's got a Mentimeter for us. Well, I want to hear from you all. What comes to mind when you think about coaching? So Annabelle's going to drop that link in the chat for us real quick. And then we'll have you all. If you click on that link that's in the chat and fill out the poll, give us a few words. What comes to mind when you think about coaching?
Thank you,
All right.
Sean, for dropping it in the chat. If you can't access the Mentimeter, I do encourage you to put your answers in the chat as well.
Yes, thank you, Donnie. I love it. Leader, support, guiding, listening, got modeling and teaching on there. I see some honesty, some patience. I love it. Teamwork, motivating, right? Seeing what's possible, being consistent. Yeah, providing training, encouragement, listening, and support. Love it. Goals. Yeah. I can tell a few of you have taken our coaching class. I'm seeing some familiar things that we talk about, which is fantastic. All right, so I'm seeing a lot of this, and this is all true, right? It's about supporting and guiding others. It's about being a role model. It's about doing lots and lots of active listening, helping people reflect and think and go through. So these are all fantastic answers. I'm going to move forward, but if you're still answering, please go ahead and continue, because we will probably grab this Mentimeter and hang on to it. Maybe post it in one of our classes, because that's fantastic. It's really great. Yeah, I see in the chat, supported by accountability. Yep. Right. So we have a very formal definition of coaching here for you today, because, you know, it wouldn't be a webinar if we didn't do some kind of a super official, hard to read language. But here we are. Coaching is human development process, right? So already we're talking about coaching as a process. It's not like a one and done event. It's not this crazy weird things we do. It's just like wraparound. We're always like, wraparound's a process. It takes time. There's a million components. It's very complicated. Coaching is the same way, right? And so in this process, we're doing structured, focused interactions, right? That's telling us a few things about what our coaching should be doing. It should be structured. It should be planned. There should be a method to the madness, right? It should be a focused interaction. So coaching isn't that thing that you do passing someone in a hallway or on the fly without really thinking about it. You might have some moments in there of brilliance, but most of it, but really if you're coaching, you should be planning this out. It should be an intentional interaction. And you're using appropriate strategies, tools, and techniques, right? So there's specific strategies, tools, and techniques that we do as coaches, and that we're bringing forward to the table for the people that we're coaching. And the whole idea is to give sustainable change and sustainable learning over time, right? We know from lots and lots and lots of research that one and done trainings are not super great for learning, right? What we're doing here today, even right now, what Annabelle is doing, we're giving you some information, we're laying the foundation, right? But if this is all you ever did around coaching, you attended this webinar and you went off with your life and never thought about coaching again, guess what's not going to change? Any of your behavior, any of your skills, right? That's not actually going to integrate this into the work you do, right? And this is where that coaching is so important for us. Coaching is really about taking this information, these skills, the things that staff are starting to learn, and how do we solidify them and turn them into a sustainable habit, a sustainable skill that they can go on and use long term and over time. All right, so let's talk about why it matters. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Notice how a lot of you guys had different responses for, what you think about when you think about coaching, right? And we all have had different experiences when it comes to coaching. The important thing is, and one of the things that we hope that you take away is that shared, aligned understanding of what we mean by coaching, specifically in wraparound, right? Why invest time and energy in something intentional when especially we have so much to do in wraparound? When do we have the time? And we'll talk about barriers a little more towards the end of the webinar. But coaching is just a powerful tool. Think about wraparound and everything that goes into wraparound. How long it takes us to orient families, how long it takes us to understand, right? How long it takes us to train staff through every phase and understand the different populations, all the different things that we have to work with in wraparound takes a lot of time. So coaching matters significantly when we talk about wraparound. Coaching is going to be that growth engine to help us with that relationship-based approach, right? To build skill sets, to help staff develop critical thinking. Think about some of the different experiences and risks that we have to take sometimes. We have crisis situations, we're supporting families through trauma. We're supporting kids through behavioral and mental health challenges. So how are we finding ways to develop staff and to help them, critically think through some of those situations so they feel equipped, so they feel confident, right, in responding to some of the things that happen day to day? How do we build that emotional intelligence and practical skills that they need to be able to do their job? So coaching is going to help us lay that foundation, right? So that we have spaces like, and we already have some spaces where we have that supervision for self-reflection, right? To give guidance, to continue to train, to manage certain situations. Those are going to be really important because no matter what, we want our staff to reflect on, what they're seeing, what they're learning, and how they're going to respond to different situations. But how do we further use coaching to build staff confidence, right? So that staff feel equipped to be able to respond to different, challenges every day and to adapt to different situations. Wraparound thrives. Our practice thrives when staff feel safe to reflect, to explore, and to grow. The more we're supporting staff in these spaces, the more that they are going to get creative with interventions, that they're going to build better safety plans, better plans of care, That's all going to be reflective if, you know, we're helping to build that confidence and to help to build that skill set. And ultimately, we're going to see how coaching is going to reinforce fidelity, our principles, our phases and activities, right? We're going to be able to have more individualized plans of cares, individualized safety plans with families as we, you know, continue to learn and reflect and help with that coaching with the staff. And then lastly, it's going to lead to better outcomes, right? And there's a lot of evidence and a lot of studies to show that when we do have a structured coaching approach, you're going to see staff that are confident and that are going to feel supported. You're also going to see staff want, you know, like to come to work, feel connected to their work, right? We're going to see a less turnover rate. Our youth and families are going to give us better feedback. They're going to tell us that, you know, they appreciate their teams, they appreciate the process, right? They're going to have a better experience overall when staff are feeling good about what they're doing and they feel confident.
Right. So coaching really supports fidelity. That's the big, like, why is it in the wraparound standards? Because it supports fidelity. And we all know, like, fidelity matters in wraparound, right? So all the research in the world shows, hey, wraparound is super effective when you do it well, not so effective when you don't do it well. Or when you don't do it well, it's just kind of like, it works, but it's not great, right? It's just about the same as anything else. So we need that wraparound fidelity. Outside of wraparound, coaching is also a good idea, right? But this isn't just a wraparound idea. Coaching occurs everywhere. It's all over the universe, especially in professional settings, right? Because coaching matters and it works and it's very helpful. In wraparound, we are super blessed that we have tools that can help us do that, right? So this is another way to show visually a lot of what Annabelle just talked about, but you bring skills forward as a coach, right? Your job is to work on coaching skills and to get really good at coaching skills. If you're wondering what those coaching skills are, come take our classes. We spend 3 days just working on skills, right? And what those skills are. But so we bring those skills and then we're super blessed that we get some tools as well. So we have fidelity tools that help us hit that mark for wraparound fidelity. They're the the team observation measure, the RAP fidelity index with the EZ, and the DART, which is the document assessment review tool. All of those are designed to support wraparound fidelity. I have seen a lot where we either do coaching with no tools that are specific to wraparound, or we use these wraparound tools for, like, we're gathering data about our programs, but then we don't actually close the loop and then use them as coaching guides and coaching tools. So you really want to think about, like, how am I integrating these two things? How are we using the tools and how are we combining our coaching into those things? I dropped the website for the WERT, it's Wraparound Evaluation and Research Team. They're the ones that host these tools. We're currently piloting and exploring how to use these tools in California. So stay tuned. Over the next few years, we should be coming out with more guidance and resources on that. But you can also certainly check with the Wraparound Evaluation Research Team. A lot of organizations have been using these tools in California for a very, very long time. If those tools are inaccessible for you, that's totally fine. There are other ways. Reach out for technical assistance support, UC Davis. We'd love to chat with you and love to help you think about that. There are other tools, other ways to do that. We're just calling these out because they're so dang useful. They're good at what they do. They're backed by a lot of research. They're awesome. All right, so commercial for that over. But when we combine those skills that we have of coaches doing our coaching roles with actual tools and structured approach, we're building up that staff confidence, that the staff skills, the staff ability to go on and then do good work, which improves our fidelity, which then should be reflected back in those cool tools we use, right? And then we can use that again to build more confidence to staff. So what I don't have on the slide is it's not a circle, but this is very much like this circular process of we're going through and building these skills and do this. So we want to think about fidelity. We don't want to think about it as just, we want to think about it as not a checklist. This is not a checklist, right? Fidelity isn't this thing where we say, oh, we did a good whippy, cool, we're done, conversation over, right? Fidelity is about how we show up in practice with our youth and families, right? This is how families, it's a reflection of how families experience us, how well we're doing in serving our youth and families. and whether or not our youth and families are going to have success. So we want to have that. And coaching helps staff know that. So they get to understand the wraparound model better in a deeper level. And it gives them the ability to actually live it, right? So if you've ever worked in wraparound programs where you have those staff that just, man, they embody the principles, they're on fire, you can feel it, everybody knows it. We're looking for those people in wraparound, right? We want to find ways to bring that forward and bring that to life. Coaching is how you do it, right? Anyone in your organization can reach that level of saying, yes, they're on fire for wraparound, they know it, if they have the right support. When our staff don't reach that level, it's usually a sign that it's not necessarily technical knowledge. There could be some technical knowledge they're missing. Usually it's a sign that we haven't given them the skills and support that they need to go off and be successful and embody those principles and live and breathe the wraparound work that we want them to breathe, right? So just keeping in mind always, this is about skills, skills, skills. How do we improve those skills? How do we get the actual work beyond just, I did a one-off training, now off you go, good luck. All right. Always with the double click on slides. Okay. So the National Wraparound Initiative has a great guide. I'm going to drop it in chat as I talk on training, coaching, and supervision for wraparound facilitators. This is directed at wraparound facilitators because in other states, so nationally, wraparound huge, they don't usually come with the full package of all the roles that California does. That's a California thing where we bring that. So although it says facilitators, you can use this for anybody. Facilitators is particularly important because the facilitator holds the ultimate responsibility of making sure the activities of wraparound happen, right? And they happen well, and that they're the ones that are guiding the team, right? But everyone in the wraparound process needs to know and have these skills, these abilities, and these things to do. As I'm talking, it's like, I lost the thing. I'll get it in a second. I'll drop it in a second after I'm done talking. Okay. You can see here there's 3 phases, and this is going from training to orientation to now innovation, right? So training is that phase 1. I'm just giving you the wraparound language. So in the standards, we talk about, hey, you need to have an orientation training for your staff, right? That's the knowledge jump of saying, this is wraparound, this is what it is. That should have an element of telling, showing, and practicing, right? There should still be some feedback. So if you're doing a wraparound orientation training, you want your staff to try on, right? We don't just want it to be like, oh, I did a quick PowerPoint lecture, or, oh, here, read this, wraparound training complete, right? You want them to start the process of trying on these skills, trying to learn these things, right? That phase 1 ends when training is completed. So, oh, this is a one-time event. We did the training, now it's done. From there, you're moving to phase 2, which is apprenticeship. This is where that coaching should start to kick in, right? So this is where they're observing others, right? So think about if you have a brand new staff, you're going out, having them go in the field and having them either shadowing a coach who's really good at this or shadowing other staff who are good at something, right? And you want to be specific, right? Go observe so-and-so because they're great at this. So they know what they're observing, why they're observing it, where are they going, right? And then you're observing. So they're saying, hey, try this on. Today, I want you to lead a child and family team meeting, and I want you to focus on this skill, right? I'm going to go observe it. I'm going to see how it does. I'm going to give feedback, right? So this should be done by experienced coaches. It should be a structured process. We're going to talk about some of the ways you can structure it in a bit, but it should be structured. And you should be using reliable assessments. So it shouldn't be that this coach in our organization thinks this way, does things this way, and this is what they do. A different coach does it differently, right? And it shouldn't be this kind of like I pop in and out, and sometimes the staff never really know when they're getting coaching, when they're not, right? They're a little bit confused. That should not be happening. It should be structured. This ends when you've done your observations, when there's a certain threshold that you're looking for. So we're saying, hey, by this assessment that we're using, you've got the skills, you've got the mastery, this is making sense. We move on. And then, some sort of knowledge test. So we're saying like, hey, you have the knowledge, right? You've mastered the skill, you have the knowledge, we're moving you out of that. Phase 3 moves into that ongoing coaching and supervision. So that's where we say, hey, you got it, you're great at it. And guess what? we're still going to monitor it. We're still going to circle back. We're still going to find other areas where you might need some coaching, right? We're going to check in occasionally, do those periodic observations, right? And why do we do that? Because fidelity falls off if we don't attend to it, right? If over time we don't keep up on this, we're going to lose it, because fidelity is really hard. There's a lot of challenging skills that go into this, so it's going to be done over time, and it's got to be an ongoing process of that. You'll see that reflected in the California wraparound standards, we hope. But this is a little bit the method behind the madness of why what's in the standards is in the standards. You need this to be a structured, consistent, ongoing process over time, not a one and done. We coached, we're good to go, see you later. Right.
All right.
I dropped the guide for you in the chat.
Thank you.
Johnny. All right, so we talked about how coaching is not just about growth, right? Building confidence, building skills, but it's also a key to high fidelity practice, which is ultimately what we want, because we know we're going to have great outcomes when that's happening. But coaching oftentimes gets confused with supervision. And a lot of times when this happens, we unintentionally shift from building skill to managing tasks. So think about your supervision experiences and some of the conversations in which that's happening, which you can start to coach, but again, unintentionally shift that space where you would hope to develop skill, and, just be really inquisitive and help staff, come to ideas and creative interventions on their own. And then all of a sudden it shifts to, oh, well, what about productivity? What about my schedule? Like all those different tasks that we know are part of wraparound and are necessary conversations, but it no longer shifts, it's no longer a coaching session or a coaching conversation with the staff. So here are some of the differences of what we mean by that intentional coaching space versus supervision. And there is room for both, and we should have structured approaches for both of them. So in coaching, we're going to have this partnership focused relationship, right? How are we partnering with our staff to help them grow, to build that skill? And in supervision, there's more of an authority base, right? Think about some of the conversations that have to happen in supervision, right? Managing conversations, productivity, performance, special related incidents. Think of all, flex funds requests, process systems. What's the protocol? What's the procedure for that? A lot of those are authority based, right? Things that have to happen a certain way, steps that have to be followed, standards that have to be met. That's going to be different than the partnered relationship that we have in coaching, where there shouldn't, it shouldn't be, a feeling of managing in that space. In coaching, we're going to take a strength-based approach. Supervision, generally very task-driven, like I mentioned some of those tasks. Coaching, we're going to take that reflective and exploratory approach, right? Staying curious, asking a lot of questions, helping to ask a lot of questions so that our staff can, come up with answers on their own and just reflect on some of the things that they're learning. Supervision, a lot more directive and evaluative, okay? Think about going back to the previous slide where Rebecca was going over the different training, right? We have the orientation and the apprenticeship, right? A lot of the times, and in one of our coaching classes, we talk about the different leadership styles that we have to use in wraparound, right? Yes, sometimes we are going to have to be directive, and that's okay, because the situation merits it. There's a lot of training that we have to do early on with staff. There's a lot of things, a lot of steps to all the orientation that we have to go through for us to understand wraparound, the activities, the phases, the strengths. Think about all those things. And yes, we need to take a directive approach when we're training, because we don't know, right? So you have to set the standards to, this is how it is, this is how we follow it, right? Staff come back, ask for feedback. How did I did? Those shadowing opportunities where we're observing, right? Asking and giving feedback. That's going to be very different, again, than that coaching space where we're sitting down and just staying very reflective. Coaching, we're going to build competence through inquiry and supervision, again, assessing performance and compliance. Coaching encourages self-generated solutions, whereas in supervision, we're going to offer prescriptive guidance. Again, think of all of those different systems and procedures that we have when we're talking about in supervision, right? Especially for some of the timelines. Think of all the timelines that we have to navigate and wrap around first face-to-face, first family team meeting, all the different timelines related to documentation, to plans that have to be built. All right. So coaching isn't just about a conversation, right? It should also be a very strategic way to how we're developing staff. So it's going to be super important that we have a structured approach for how our staff are experiencing and receiving coaching, right? A structured approach that is consistent, that's predictable, and everyone around us has a shared understanding of coaching and when they're being coached. Without structure, staff are going to feel, or the conversations are going to feel very vague, very advice giving, right? So it'll start with just a simple conversation. Well, let's talk. And maybe, the staff is confused about something and they'll feel, resistant to maybe changing what it is that they're being, talked about. A lot of circling around the issues, no clarity, no direct approach, and no clear outcome. And that's why staff become frustrated, right? So let's see. Some of what that looks like in coaching without a model, right? Inconsistent conversations. We're going to rely a lot on personality or instinct. Risk of defensiveness as confusion, as we mentioned before. It's going to be very difficult to measure impact or progress. What are we talking about? Just, those quick check-ins that we want to call and check off and say that we're coaching. But there's no real clear task or clear way that we're measuring how the staff is growing or what impact some of the different strategies or different approaches that they're taking. Coach-driven advice giving. We talk a lot about advice monsters, right? And one of the key things to a skill that we need to grow when we're coaching is how do we resist, our advice monster? How do we resist automatically giving advice and telling staff the answer, right? Because that in itself is going to slow down the learning for the staff, right? So when we do have a structured approach and when we have a model of coaching and we're aligned in what that expectation is and what we're saying a coaching space looks like, we're going to have very clear goals, right? What's that space for, what the conversations are going to be about. They're going to be very reality driven. There's going to be options on what to do because we're staying inquisitive and we're asking the staff what they want to try. And we're going to have a plan. They're going to feel equipped with the plan of how to go out there, and try something new or change their approach or try a different intervention. So here are some of the other examples of what we see and what we get when we take that structured approach, right? We're going to have guided and shared expectations. Again, staff are going to feel safe. Going back to what Frederick talked about earlier, the relationship is just different, right? You have that psychological safety to admit also when things didn't go your way, or maybe you feel like you made a mistake, and that's okay, right? There's no shaming, there's no blaming. How do we grow from that? How do we stay in provide that psychological safety for staff to reflect on what they can learn from that and how are they going to go out and do things better or try things differently? Allow for goal tracking and reflection, right? We got to be intentional to keep track of how people are growing, how staff are growing, especially if we're going to have programs where we're trying to have new staff go out and shadow. Well, how do, it shouldn't just be like meeny, miny, mo, go shadow this one or go shadow what's available based on the scheduling. We should have a sense of like, look, you're going to shadow this person because we want you to see how they build rapport with the new client, right? Very specific things that we want them to see, and we should be tracking what those things are, and not only what we're sending them to and what they're shadowing, but what are they getting from it? Because oftentimes we all know how life is in wraparound. Maybe we were planning for this to happen in a session or in a family team meeting, and things went a different direction. So how do we set up more ways for staff to get the experience and the growth that they need? And then coachee-led discovery and growth. So in coaching, the staff are the ones doing most of the talking. Coaches are just, having that inquiry and staying very curious and asking those open-ended questions.
And think about the video clip that we showed you at the beginning of this webinar, right? Though that argument that's happening, the frustration that's boiling up, right? That's what happens when we're not using coaching, or we're using coaching, but we're not using an actual model that brings that level of clarity and clear objectives and knowing where we're going and everybody's on board, right? We end up with that frustration. You could hear it right in the video. Is like, well, you guys aren't doing your job. Like, you're not even blocking, right? You're not even trying when this person's up, right? Well, why should I try for you if you're not trying for me, right? We see that and we're going that circular process. That was a huge moment of resistance, right? So that team was not bought in to what was happening, right? The team wasn't bought into the mission, and it was showing up in how they were functioning, how they were actually performing as a team. And nobody had said it yet, but we could clearly see it in their behaviors, right? And this happens with your staff, right? As Annabelle was talking, have you guys seen that? Have you seen the confusion? You've seen going in circles, the quiet, I'm not doing that, as we nod and smile along and say yes, and then nobody did anything after the meeting. You're like, what in the world happened? Right? So we see this, and this is where having a coaching model is so, so important to say, if you're going to do coaching, do it well and pick a model, right? And use it. This is UC Davis's skills-based coaching model. And just a really quick overview it. This is the one that we, yes, Donnie, 1,000%. Mine is the emphasis on the quiet, not doing it. You'll know when it's just not done. So for the UC Davis model we have here, it starts out in initial interest. This is where a staff maybe goes to a training like what we're doing today, right? Or they come to take one of UC Davis's million wraparound trainings that they have. They're getting some kind of information, and now they're thinking, wow, I really want to try this. I want to buy, I want to incorporate this insert skill here, right, into my practice. And then so that's an indication like, okay, now we're going to do coaching. So notice that there's like a clear start to the coaching process here. It's not like, oh, there's just kind of, we stumbled into coaching. We're saying, hey, we have something, we want to follow up on it. We're gonna initiate the coaching process. The other thing you should notice about this model is that the staff should be bought in. So whoever you're coaching should be bought into the process, right? This assumes some level of buy-in. If somebody's not bought into receiving coaching and doing coaching, you're probably not going to be doing coaching with them, right? Because it's not going to be successful. That's when maybe we need to have a supervision conversation, or we need to dive into first of like why and where are we at, right? Joint planning. So where the coach and the coachee come together and they plan the coaching process together, right? So we're doing this initial like, hi, how are you? What's this going to look like? We're building a relationship with each other, right? We're getting to know each other. What does this sound a little bit like? Should sound a little bit like the engagement phase of Wraparound. Hi, how are you? Welcome. Let's get to know each other. Let's learn about it. We're going to start this new process together. We're going to plan out what that means in a minute. But first, we're going to say hi and start building a relationship, right? And then we're going to set agreements with each other. So talk about like team agreements. What is this coaching process going to look like? What do you need to be successful in this relationship? What do I need as a coach to be successful in this relationship, right? So we're starting to lay those foundational work. Once that foundational work is laid and we're clear on who we are, what we're doing, what it is we're coaching about, how long that coaching process is going to be, how do we know when we're done, all those things. We have some measurable goals in place. Now we're going to get into the meat and potatoes of the coaching, right? And so that meat of the coaching is observation and demonstration. You gained a skill. We talked about the skill. We all know this is the skill we want to work on. Let's have you demonstrate it. Show me where you're at. Let's see it, right? And then I'm going to give you feedback. I'm going to observe and I'm going to say, okay, when I give feedback, it's not just like you did it and then instant feedback, right? So there's this process of also like, let's analyze, how did that go? What did it look like? And building space for reflection. We talk about this a lot in our coaching class, and we try to spend some time really practicing this because this is so important. Teaching is about giving information. We try to build some reflections in there. We try to give opportunities for staff to chew on it, right? But coaching is really about living in the reflection and getting people to create their own insights, getting people to truly take on and try on this material and process it. It's not just our checklist that we're running through, right? It's really about this. So we have that period of analyzing the information, considering it. How did this go? What do we think? And then as a coach, I'm going to dive into facilitating that reflection. So they've had a minute, right? So you didn't finish the CFT and I'm standing outside the family's door and I'm giving you the feedback. Nope, wrong, right? We're going to have some time. You did the CFT. I'm going to give you time to think about how did it go. Then we're going to come together. We're going to do that together. How did it go? What did it look like? What did you get from it? This is what I saw as a coach, right? So we're doing this kind of back and forth and feedback together. And then we're going to evaluate. So once we've done that, we're going to evaluate, how did that go? How did that feel? Not just for like the whatever skill I observed, but for the coaching process. What can you as a coach do better for your staff? What can they do for you? How's the process going? This should sound very familiar. This is very much like our wraparound process. We engage, we plan, and then we implement. And during that implementation, we check in, we see how things are going. We reflect on what we've done well and what we need to do more of. We evaluate our process for goals, right? So these 4 middle sections just repeat over and over and over again until at some point we decide, hey, you've got it, you're doing well in the skill, we're going to move you on. This coaching model fits really great in that phase 2. When we showed you the National Wraparound Initiative phases of coaching and implementation, right? This is a great phase 2 model for that. You got the information, now we're practicing it, and then we're going to close it out when you're done. If you're doing this model, great, that's awesome. When we say close, we're like saying close on this behavior, this skill, this whatever it is you're learning, not close the information, not close the coaching session, like coaching, you're never going to get coaching again, right? Because in wraparound, we want to have, at some point you have to move into that phase 3 where they're still getting the ongoing coaching. And so that might look like now we've closed this, you've gotten the behavior skills, we're going to go to periodic observation. And then that periodic observation might trigger us to now re-enter because we've fallen off of something, right? So that's our coaching model. And you want to, again, it's just using this model, having it be structured, having it be thoughtful, making sure that your staff know what they're going to do. And Annabelle's going to talk to you about another model as well, right here.
Yeah, so just like it's important to have a structured coaching model approach, even more important is having a structured way to give feedback, right? Think about even working within your teams or, you know, in those leadership spaces. How are we consistently giving feedback in a way where, you know, our staff are hearing us or our peers are hearing us so that we can move forward? Think of all the different situations that we navigate and how hard it is to do teaming in wraparound. So we wanted to give you a quick just review of the SBI model. I'm sure some of you guys are familiar with it. This is a very, very effective way at giving feedback, situation, behavior, and impact. It helps to reduce some of that conflict, right? Some of that resistance to hearing feedback. Oftentimes what we see in our workspaces is that sandwich approach. Donnie, doesn't work. I know you love it. It doesn't work.
I am an Oreo, Annabelle.
I know how much you like it, and I was gonna have a sandwich picture here for you with a big old line across it, but it's all good. But think about it, right? We want to make sure, think of what's at stake with some of the things and situations that we're working with. We need to change things quickly. If things aren't working, if families aren't engaging, if the relationship isn't happening, if families are upset with an intervention or with the person on the team, right? We need to be able to give that feedback. We need to be able to talk about the situation. And oftentimes the sandwich model may feel disingenuous to folks, right? And people will dismiss the point of that middle sandwich that you're trying, you know, to give them, that 10% that's really important of that behavior or that approach that you want them to change. So looking at the SBI model, right? So we're going to describe the specific situation. What is it that we're seeing? Be very specific. And again, this helps to kind of reduce that tension or disarm the space because you're going to speak to either something that you observed, right? That you experience, but it's specific also to that behavior, taking away, you know, personality related conflicts. So be specific. What do you want that, you know, staff or that peer to hear, the place, the time, the circumstances? Then describe the observable behavior, right? Keep it simple, descriptive. This is what I saw or heard. Avoid any judgment related. Don't put your opinion in it. Just describe exactly what you saw. What was that observable action or behavior? And then the impact, right? Share with the person the impact of their behavior, and in the line of work that we do, relate the impact, right, to that high fidelity process. Or that teaming, right? That family team meeting or that relationship with the family. So think about some of the different situations that we navigate, in Wraparound, or some of the situations you have right now, maybe working with other team members, right? Like, I'll give you a quick example of how this can be highly effective. Last week during a family team meeting for the Smith family, we were discussing the crisis plan. I noticed that you spoke over the parent a few times while they were sharing their concerns and redirected the conversation to the action step we needed to finalize. So this is feedback to the facilitator. The impact. When that happened, I saw that the parent seemed frustrated and stopped participating as openly in the meeting. I'm concerned that they may have felt unheard, which could make it harder for them to engage in future meetings. Situation, what was the behavior, and what's the impact on the process? It's not about the person, right? And think of how your peer is going to appreciate knowing that, and how quickly it is, oh, okay, what do you suggest? Or them knowing exactly what the behavior is, what they need to change, how they need to change their approach. And with so many things already that can easily lead to conflict in our team meeting spaces or in our workspaces, think of all the different things that we have to do in order to function as a team. This is just a very quick and clear structured approach at giving and receiving feedback. All right. So even with all the tools, right, and that structured approach, we can still fall short, right? And SBI is great at giving just a structured for that feedback, so we stay speaking respectfully, clearly, and just growth focused. How do we want to change behavior and help people develop skills in a way that is going to help them? So even with that, sometimes we're going to fall short, and mindset is going to matter significantly on how we coach, right? It's not about what we do or how we or it's a lot of the times it's about the impact of our words. So when we're in coaching spaces, mindset is going to matter, right? How are we showing up to those spaces as a coach? Because we may still have all the tools and all the the structured approach, but how are we showing up and staying in a place where staff are going to feel empowered? And what is it going to take for us to have that mindset coaching? So here is just kind of a visual of what this cycle of coaching should look like, right? How we're going to prioritize staying curious or curiosity over control by asking questions before giving advice. Think about situations in Wraparound. Sometimes we just need to be heard. We just need to talk through what the situation was. And a lot of the times, you'll have that aha moment. Okay, I know where I went wrong after hearing it, right? After being in a separate, safe space where you're just kind of reflecting on the situation and holding that space for that self-discovery with staff might be enough, right? But how do you stay inquisitive, as they're talking and just asking those questions? We're going to stay compassionate over, critiquing, right? Always assuming good intentions with our staff, because none of us woke up in the morning wanting to be, crappy at our jobs, right? Or wanting to be ineffective team members. We all want to do a good job. We all want to help families, empower families, and have good outcomes. So in those spaces as a coach, you should stay in that space of assuming good intentions with staff, right? Affirming their strengths and affirming, all those areas of growth. Staying presence over productivity. I know a lot of us have to do that dual role. Absolutely, supervisors can be coaches, but what does that space look like for you guys? How are you being intentional as leaders to separate, right, that psychological safety and, not, reinforce productivity when your staff is in that self-discovery and having that great reflection? And, but don't forget.
Did Annabelle freeze?
No, she froze.
Yep. Okay.
Oh man, Annabelle. All right.
I know. Now you get to jump in. Oh, there she is.
Oh, there
We
you're
got
back.
you just like this, Annabelle. You're like making a point.
Okay. Go ahead.
All right. So,
Go ahead.
well, all right, let's talk about some of these skills, right? So you have the mindset, you have the model. What are the skills we need to move forward? Maybe if PowerPoint will let me. Okay, cool. Some of these skills that will make great coaches, right? You need to be able to do active listening. And when we say active listening, we don't mean the active listening when we say that when we're like, yeah, I'm a great listener. We mean like true being present, undistraction, no multitasking, focus on what the person's saying, and not the kind where I'm listening for solutions and I'm gonna fix that. Oh, you said that your family team meeting was a little rough. I have a solution for that, right? We do that all the time as supervisors. Wrong, no, stop. It's that ability to truly, truly listen, to have a reflective space where you say, and what else? Tell me more. Let's think about that together. Then what happened, right? It's really slowing down and taking the time to truly listen to your staff so they can experience that reflective interaction. Doing that requires the ability to ask really, really good, powerful questions, right? So you want to get good and train yourself on, have a list. We talk about this in our coaching class. We give you some lists of what are some really good questions to have, right? What should I be asking? Have those on hand, have them on the top of your head. And I mean like physically have a list. If you're new at this and you're learning, what are some great questions to ask here? Let's try these questions on. Let's get down to it, right? You want to create the place where your staff find their own solutions, and we're not telling, prescribing, advising, right? That's where the meat and potatoes of coaching, and that's where it really takes a difference from supervision, where we're saying, I need you to go here, I need you to do this, try this, right? This is really a reflective space. You should have empathy and validation. If your staff cannot connect with you, if they don't feel understood by you, it really doesn't matter what coaching model you use because they're going to be out the door, right? Or they're going to be nodding, smiling, and not doing it anyway, right? So you really need to make sure you create that space of empathy and validation. If you're a coach or a supervisor that does coaching with your staff and you're looking at this list, I hope you're like thinking about, what am I good at and where do I need to grow, right? Some of us are naturally super good listeners. Some of us aren't. It's either's okay. How do you get the skill in place, right? Some of us are super empathetic. Some of us are not. Like, come on, man, I got like 8,000 things to do, you know, right? So know that and work on that yourself. How do you give feedback with care? So Annabelle just gave you a great model on like, here's some SBI, here's a way to give feedback, right? How am I practicing that? Am I good at it? Can I give clear and direct feedback that comes across caring and out of respect and love and not out of that was terrible, do better, right? Can you provide a holding space and healing in within that space, right? How are you creating your space and owning that space? Providing clarity and focus, right? So it's one thing to have a great, everybody feels good, we did a lot of listening and talking and I feel so wonderful afterwards. But if I don't walk out with some sort of clarity, some sort of focus, knowing what I should be doing next, then we also failed, right? So you don't want to be a checklist, but you also don't want it to be feel good, so nebulous that we never actually get to, this is what we're doing next and this is what I'm going to go work on. And then providing that encouragement and support, right? You want to be the cheerleader for your staff. You want them to go out and feel like, yes, I'm cheering you on. When you show up for an observation, you want your staff to be like, yes, my coach is here to observe me. This is going to be great. I'm going to get some good learning done today. Not, oh no, my coach is here. I'm so scared. Don't let me do it, right? So you want to, again, work on these skills and build them up so that we have that ability to really bring it forward, right? And celebrate, just like we do in Wraparound. Celebrate, celebrate, celebrate. Make sure that you are building up. When you see something done well, call that out, celebrate it, love on it, show them that, you know, that you see their progress, right? And especially for those of us that are like very perfectionistic, you have those staff, right? They will totally miss their progress, right? They won't see it unless you're there to cheer it and celebrate it. Just again, be mindful how you do that, because unless you're Donnie Lynch who loves a good sandwich, don't celebrate, stick something in the middle real quickly, and then celebrate again, and they totally miss the fact that that they had something they needed to work on, right? So being mindful about how we do that. Okay, let's shift gears and talk about the neuroscience of coaching. So why are we saying models and lots of active listening and lots of reflection and all of the things that we're saying? Well, we're saying that because that's literally how our brains work. And we need to create the space where our brains are actually online and working and fully functioning. Coaching is a whole brain activity. It really takes up the whole brain. It takes a lot of time and effort and like physical energy, right, to do. So I'm saying whole brain and then calling out these are 3 specific brain areas that show up in our coaching processes that we really want to use to the positive, because if not, they'll be used to the negative. Right? So the first is that prefrontal cortex. The prefrontal cortex right here in the front of your brain, that's your planning, your decision making, your higher reasoning, your thinking and logic, right? All of that lives in that prefrontal cortex. It's the last thing that develops. So if you want to know what the prefrontal cortex does, you can think about what does a teenager not do well? And then that's what the opposite of that is the prefrontal cortex. Anything the teenager can't do is what the prefrontal cortex does, right? So this prefrontal cortex, that's the thinking part of our brain. This is where we help us provide structure and guidance, right? So that's the logical piece of this. We want to have the logic coming into the room. Then we have the amygdala. The amygdala is your fight or flight, right? It's that little alarm clock that's always looking and always searching and saying, hey, what's going on? Is there anything bad, right? So that's processing and regulating all of your emotions. It's coming in through there. That's allowing coaches to understand and respond empathetically to your staff's feelings, right? So you're using as a coach, your amygdala is online to say, like, what are the feelings here? And how do we reduce threat? We'll talk about that in a second. Hippocampus is very influential for learning and memory formation, right? So our hippocampus is actually the regulator to say, hey, this is very emotionally impactful. This is very positive. This is very negative. Oh, I should really remember this. And so it tells the rest of us, our brain, how and what to remember, like how strong to remember something, right? Our hippocampus, and it's all a little bit vague and not super well understood, but we're learning, right? That this is responsible for that learning and memory formation, right? And so again, we want that hippocampus online in a safe space because we're trying to give staff new insights, strategies, self-awareness, skills, right? And so having that hippocampus online to learn that. Okay. There's a very strong connection between your hippocampus and your amygdala. So if you think of the amygdala, again, it's your fire alarm. The amygdala is the part of your brain moving through the earth saying, that is scary or that is good, right? But mostly I'm just looking around the world like what's scary, and when it's scary, how do I sound the biggest alarm I can? If you think of a baby, right? Babies are only born with their limbic system. Limbic system is got the amygdala and hippocampus, right? These are the 2 strongest functioning things that's happened. It's actually the relationship between the amygdala and the hippocampus that formed your prefrontal cortex. Kind of fun fact of like your babies are born with just this limbic system. They experience fear, fight or flight, all that. Then they experience comfort from their caregivers. The more they experience the comfort from their caregivers, that actually upregulates or helps develop their cortex. So this connection though is very weak. So we have these strong connection between hippocampus and amygdala, and then a very weak hippocampus and a very long journey from your amygdala and hippocampus in the back of your brains all the way up to the prefrontal cortex. You can think of the amygdala and the hippocampus as your lizard brain, the not smart brain, all thinking and feeling, all thinking and logic are out the window. I'm only in the fields and I'm only in fight or flight. There's like all the F's, right? I'm saying fight or flight, but it's all the F's, right? Freeze and all that. So when you're coaching, you need these 3 systems to connect to each other, to have staff learn successfully, right? And we do that through down regulating the amygdala. In other words, we do that through trying to make sure that that amygdala feels super, super safe and secure, and we avoid the triggers, and we try not to scare our staff, right? So when in the coaching class, we go over the SCARF model, and SCARF model is just a shorthand way of thinking about like, how did something trigger me? How did something alert me? You ever have those moments where it's like 0 to 60 and you have no idea what happened? One minute we were all great. The next minute people are scared, people are worried, right? People are defensive. All of those happen, and it can happen lightning fast. That's a sign that our amygdala has been hijacked. Dan Siegel has a hand model of the brain. And so he really talks about like when your brain's online, your full brain's online, that's a closed hand. You see your prefrontal cortex there, being your fingers on the outside. when we're triggered, right, that prefrontal, we flip our lid, that prefrontal cortex goes away. And we're just operating on this limbic system, which is our lizard brain, right? So now we're a bunch of lizards going around. We cannot have good coaching conversations if we're sending our staff, and we cannot have good wraparound fidelity if we're sending our staff into situations as a bunch of lizards with their lids flipped. Imagine like a dinosaur, right? Our families are in their lizard brain because they're stressed, they're worried, they're triggered, right? They've got 1,000 things going on. They've got all these professionals coming into our house. So here they are, there's a dinosaur. To them, an asteroid's coming, right? Terrible things are happening. And we're like, here's a bunch of lizards to go out and help you and save you. It's not helpful. It's not gonna go well. So our job is to make sure that our staff are able to be in that space. And again, this is so important because we work with trauma all day long, and trauma can trigger our staff all day long. And it's just we're ripe for constantly being in our amygdala and hippocampus. We do this by building trust. So as a coach, our job is to build some very trusting relationships. And again, this goes back to that model of really building a relationship with your staff, making sure that you're able to be in a good space with them, and then slowing down, like very much slowing down and having a process so we can think, we can reflect, we can be a part of, we get our whole brain aligned in the relationship to learn. So this has, we have our system from low trust to high trust. And really it's from the back of your brain to your front of your brain. You need staff to be able to walk all the way from the back to the front. When you say something and I'm listening, it comes in through my ears. It goes through the back of the brain first, right? It goes through my amygdala and my hippocampus first. And then it has a very long walk to get to my prefrontal cortex. If I'm trusting, if I'm in a place of being able to be creative, right? And I have high trust and I feel safe, then I'm able to do that long walk. And then I'm able to talk to you, and then you are able to hear it in through your amygdala and hippocampus and bring it to your prefrontal cortex and have the same relationship. If one of our lids are flipped or both of us are flipped, we're stuck in that low trust scenario, right? And then our lizard brains are talking to each other and we're never going to make progress. We can't get there, right? And that's where you get that resistance. That's where you get skepticism. Maybe as you get a little bit better, you'll get to that conditional trust, which is the wait and see. And you'll see this show up in staff, right? For the staff that you go to coaching, you have a conversation and they're like, got it. And then they don't do it. Or you have a great coaching conversation, you set the goals, and they're like, maybe, kind of, they put a little toe in the water, they're maybe gonna do it, right? Versus those staff that where they're able to jump in and say, I'm gonna try this on, let's create it. And in fact, I just had a moment. I had an insight, I'm gonna even do this. Or I think if I tried this, I'd do it that way, right? That's what we wanna create in our staff. And so it's all about, how do you build a trusting relationship, and how do you create space and time for our full brains to be aligned in a conversation so I can have my own insights and I can have my own thoughts and feelings about what it is I'm being coached on, what my goals are going to be. All right. Oh, that fire alarm threw me off. Okay. So coaching helps regulate and stimulate growth. So again, how do we regulate the brains? We reduce those fear-based interactions. So we're creating psychological safety. We have empathy, curiosity. We're also creating psychological safety through having structure, right? Structure, predictability is good. We like that, right? We're activating the prefrontal cortex. So we're balancing. We're saying, let's tap into those emotions. Let's create space for it, but also get your brain online because we're going to think, we're going to have logic, right? So we're connecting the problem solving and the reflection with your emotion regulation. We're encouraging goal-oriented thinking. So we are setting goals. We are looking at the future. We are having structure again to this. We're engaging our motivation. We're engaging those planning pathways, right? We're shifting focus from mistakes into learning. So instead of seeing mistakes as, threat, scary, I made a mistake, I must hide. I made a mistake, I must run away. I made a mistake, I'm going to argue with you about why it wasn't a mistake. We can actually own those mistakes and then say, learning opportunity. That mistake was a growth, right? How do I see that as growth and as an opportunity to move forward, right? Celebrating those mistakes, making them a good thing. And then we're promoting oxytocin, right? So instead of the scary chemicals and our cortisol and our stress hormones, we want those oxytocin to come up, right? And show up, because that oxytocin is going to turn things on, right? It's going to promote that growth and healing. That's how that infant is learning to develop their cortex through that oxytocin dump they're getting with their caregivers when they're close and snuggled up and being comforted. We want to create those kind of spaces, not literally, right? But with that psychological safety and getting the oxytocin flowing so that it can increase those brain connections and we can form new connections. And that reinforces it, right? Just reinforce, right? That repetition over and over and over again. What gets fired gets hardwired. Maybe you've heard that. It's an old saying from neuroscience way back when, right? The more we do this over and over again, the more staff are able to develop those new neural pathways. And then that learning becomes from this awkward learning, trying on thing I'm doing to a habit. And that's where we want to get, right? Where they get this new skill and they do it over and over and over again enough that it just becomes a habit that we can do again and again and again, and makes it simple, clear, right? And then that's when we're able to, when it's that habit, and now I can do it over and over and over again, then it can, then it becomes that, then that's when we can close the coaching on that whatever skill of behavior, and we can move on to what else, right? What's the next thing we want to learn? We have a few minutes, so I want to take a pause here and just ask, is there questions about the neuroscience? Does anything stand out for you? Did it make sense? Are there any other neuroscience nerds in the room that love this stuff and think it's really cool?
Can I just say
Right.
thank you? I'm gaining a lot
Yes.
from this. It's helping me. Like I said, I like to learn. And moving forward, I'm developing new staff. I have about 8 new liaisons in my county that I am developing workshop. This information, I can't wait to get it sent. Will help a lot with helping them to understand relationship. Helping families is all about relationship and listening. And I'm overwhelmed with the knowledge that I'm gaining. I really appreciate Annabelle and you, Rebecca. It's just been really great to just sit here and listen and take in this information. Learning, like I said, I'm a nerd learner. I love learning. My staff, everything that you talk about, I'm trying to do with my new staff. I have that developed with staff that have been with me, but when you get new staff, they're younger, they're just getting out of college or this is their first time. So you want to find ways that you can get them involved in a way that's comfortable for them, that they don't see you as the boss. They see you as a co-worker. I use iron sharpen irons a lot, or locking arms. I really like working with people, but most important, I like serving people. That's my mantra, is that I live to serve. And that's what I tell people. I'm not here to I'm here to be beside. I think that's important. And so you just given me a lot. And I just want to say that. Thank you.
Thank you, Frederick. That's awesome. I love that. That's what we're here for, right? That's why we show up. Love to hear that that's connecting so well. Anyone else have any thoughts? I see some in chat as well, but feel free to unmute. This is our time now.
I did see someone raise their hand and I didn't catch their name and I feel like it started with a K. So if you wanted to come off mute, I was feverishly looking for you, ma'am. All right, I tried.
Totally me. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
there you go.
Rebecca had asked a question about anyone else that just nerds out to neuroscience. That's totally me.
Yeah.
And so I was just saying, yes, she has someone
That's-
else that nerds out with her.
That's awesome.
Thank
Someone
you.
needs to join her club because I hear Charlie Brown, wah, 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 wah. And I probably needed the most. I know, Frederick, it's terrible.
One thing that was really coming to my mind too, connecting the neuroscience stuff, is like this idea that it's better to err and repair than to have never erred at all. Because turns out in our brains, we learn better when we first make a mistake and then get like a redo or a repair than if we would have gotten it the first time. So I think it gives us like a chance to really extend some like deep grace to those around us, because it turns out when mistakes are made, we have an even better chance of coaching a new neural pathway that's going to stick and stick longer than if they got it just the first time, you know? So just kind of remembering that about our brains too, like mistakes are so powerful. And, you know, and I think that's why too, part of what we do in TBRI, which trust-based relational intervention, is when we practice with kids and when we practice with moms and dads, like we start by first practicing the wrong way to do it. You know, like say we're going to teach something like gentle and kind, right? And we got some little ones and we're like, first show me not gentle and kind. And they'll show it to you. They'll be smacking the puppets, they'll be smacking the cars. Like the not gentle and kind, like first, the wrong way to do it. Like the thing is, there's that neural pathway that's already there. So we're going to open it up. But then, like you talked about, like the hijacking, right? We're going to hijack that neural pathway that we don't want anymore. We're going to rewire by first opening up that wrong way to do it, and then give them the practice of the right way to do it. Because now we're actually rewiring. Like there's already a tunnel there. Let's take that tunnel and form that tunnel differently, you know? So just like superpower in making a mistake. Like we it's like a strength. Like, so yeah, it just was coming to my head with the neuroscience.
That is great, right? That TBR stuff, that's fantastic. And yeah, going to that trust, and you know, it's triggering for me too. We coach and supervise peer and parent partners, right? And they're coming to trauma. I mean, really, anybody is potentially coming with trauma. A lot of times that's what brings people to this field, right? I've had my trauma and now I'm going to bring it forward, right? But think of our peer and partner partners who are coming in here through lived experience, right? They have their own worries about, I don't have a degree in this. Do I fit in? How does this work? Where's my role in this? And also, they have the most superpowers of all of us because they've been here, right? And they have this crazy great ability to call us out and keep us accountable. They can only do that role if they can trust that they can show up in that way and have it be heard, valued, listened to, built upon, right? And so again, that's just another opportunity where that coaching comes in to help uplift those staff, right? Help uplift our lived experience voices in the room through creating this trust-based relationship. And then being mindful again that just we're gonna have lids be flipped. If lids aren't being flipped in your wraparound process, then you're doing something wrong. Then take our coaching teams class and come learn about this, like the superficial agreement that we get, right? When teams are not doing well, when there's no conflict at all, right? Those are red flags that something's wrong here because we're in it. We're in the messiness of being human. Oh, thanks, podcast. We're in this, right? we're gonna show up every day and do hard work. Lids are gonna get flipped. Our job as coaches is how do we then create the conditions for repair and learning. And that's a big piece of the coaching is we don't want to get stuck in I repaired, move on. We want to go from repair to how do we learn, how do we grow, and how do we put skills in place.
Hi, I'm gonna jump in really quick. I really appreciate what everyone has shared, and to the point that that was just made is also there's first time scenarios that it's a first time for everything kind of experience that, especially nowadays, I don't want to like, keep saying that, but it's just the unexpected and being open to just be innovative on the way we approach things because of the first time scenario. So the grace is definitely a word that I've been throwing around loosely because there's first time things that we're living and we're literally learning as we go. So I think that I'm very grateful for the opportunity to have learned new terms that explain and better explain situations and how to better navigate through those. For me specifically here, the question I have is something more related to once you're in that work, that line of field, and you're it's almost like you can't turn it off, because wherever you're at, you might come into a scenario and you may be off the clock and there's something that you just happen to be aware of, or you happen to come in, and being that we're in this type of work, it really helps to know that we have this type of support and that we have this type of opportunity to really lean on one another for growth, because in our line of work, it really helps when we are open to these types of scenarios and being really real about it. Like, this is real life. It's not always pretty, but it happens, and we make the best of what we can with the tools that we have. So thank you for all of the encouraging and the positive outcomes, because that's another thing that I'm very hopeful with this, is that this type of work isn't going anywhere, and that there's people vested in it to help individuals that need it. So thanks.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that, Iris. Vanessa, go ahead.
Yeah, just one more last thought, guys. Bear with me. So, like, I really appreciate when we get more and more nuggets of this of the neuroscience part, because I feel like, as like the helpers of the world, right? Like, those of us here, it's like it helps us to kind of in moments of tough times and tough thinking. And I saw Donna's message here talking about how, sometimes our helpers even go home and they're still living in this space of growth themselves. So when we can take a little time to help each other, to really remember like what parts of what we're dealing with is capacity, and even just biology, what our brain does in times of fear, all of our brains, not just the people that we're serving, but that's going to happen to us sometimes too. I think it gives us like an opportunity and a space to have more grace for each other, because it truly takes us out of the thinking of, willful disobedience, or willfully not doing what I told you to do already a few times, right? It helps us to be more curious about what's going on and understand which parts of these is just capacity. Because of our brains shifting into a different part of our brain, like that hand model that you showed us, there's only certain things that part of the brain can do. So why are we upset and expecting things more when, if we can identify that that's what happened, that's all you can do. Is you can fight it, you can run away, you can freeze, or you can fake it, right? So kind of the more we can learn about what's even doable and what we're capable of in those moments, helps give us like a minute to stop and be curious and to understand why, and to maybe work to help both ourselves and those we're working with to get out of that kind of brain, to be able to be logic with all of this other information that they're giving us. But just really just think what's capacity, and and versus what you think that they're doing.
I think one of the key skills of being a coach is knowing when not to coach, right? And so when somebody's already triggered, your job as a coach is to just bring them back down, right? And sometimes we're not going to do that in the moment, right? So sometimes when you're doing your coaching space, you want to be creating that safe space, and you want to be building the psychological safety and all those things, right? There are times when staff are just triggered, and think about, especially true for our peer and parent partners who might have been doing this at home, and then they're doing it at work, and they're with families all day long, and they're in the mess all day long. Sometimes our job is just be like, we're not going to coach right now. We're actually going to take a break. Like, what do you need to be in a good space? What do you need to have that ability to rest, reflect, react later, right? So let's just get you calmed down, right? And that's okay for coaches to do that. Same thing with teams, right? Sometimes teams, we go off the rails altogether. We're all triggered, right? We're not going to find a solution in that. And so sometimes just knowing when to bring a stuff down. When do you coach? When do you not coach? Again, this is just that intentionality of slowing down and be really, really mindful as a coach, what conversation am I having? Why am I having it? And when am I having it? Right? It's always that important piece. I'm going to move us forward a little bit on this. Just great quote, I think. Confidence grows when we're seen, supported, and stretched. Right? So I want to be seen where I'm at. I want to feel supported where I'm at. And then I need help stretching just a little bit outside my comfort zone. We know there's lots of research and books and things on change theory and how people change and how people grow. If you're stretched too far, if you're stretched too thin, you don't grow, right? But if you're a little bit outside your comfort zone, then you grow well. If you're too comfortable, again, you don't grow. You're stuck, right? We want that little bit of stretch, just a little bit, but it's only done if we're in that context of being seen and supported.
All right. Let's talk about some of the practical ways we can integrate coaching in some of the spaces and structures that we already have in place, right? Again, it's really important to be intentional with how we're shaping these spaces of the conversations we're having. But remember, coaching is a mindset. So there's different ways we can approach those situations and how we ask questions, right? And how we use active listening and reflective questions. One of the things, as Rebecca and I have been teaching the foundations in coaching, one of the biggest takeaways for our participants has been how much they have assumed that they were really good listeners. And because we do, we practice the skill of active listening a lot in that course. That's one of the big takeaways that a lot of them end up taking away. Oh, I wasn't as a good active listener as I thought, right? How often, especially in Wraparound where we're, staffing cases and talking about interventions, right? We're often quick to listen, to respond, than to really take in when, someone is talking to us, and just really reflect on those values, beliefs, and feelings that they're speaking for, and how are we receiving that information. So one-on-one check-ins are a good way, right? Where we can utilize some of those coaching questions and explore, how things are working, what the dynamics are, where staff feels stuck, what it is that they need. So how do we build, aside from, that individual supervision, how do we build in spaces, or maybe we have a standing space for that, but how do we still create an additional, 15, 30 minutes of that coaching experience where we shift the conversation to just asking those questions and checking in on, where our staff are and what they need. Field observations, a lot of us now are implementing that team observation measure, which is amazing. And some of you already have structures in place of how you're observing staff in the field. And that's a great space to coach, right? How are we observing and reflecting, and asking them questions about their experience, about what they noticed, about their takeaways, what they saw, and just diving into and, unpacking those situations. Peer learning groups are anything from even how we're, observing family team meetings, our team supervisions, our team huddles. Again, going back to that comment about, our parent partners and our peer supports, don't lose sight of how are we equipping our, direct roles and our peers to also be coaches? How are we helping them develop those skills? Because they need that support a lot of the times. And I have found myself many a times, right, where if I don't have that relatable experience, if I've never been a parent partner, been in a parent partner role, right, and gotten through some of those challenges, or, had those experiences, then the credibility is just not going to be there, right? Or maybe that even as much as we're trying to create that safe space, we're still not going to have that space that's completely disarmed, where our parent partners are going to feel supported to talk about those things. And, that coaching is going to be just much more valuable with somebody who's been in that role, who somebody can completely validate everything that they're saying because they've had that experience. So don't lose sight of how we're putting our peers in those roles, in those coaching roles as well. Especially when we're saying, okay, you're somebody that now I feel people should shadow because you're showing great skills in this. Okay, we'll take them a step further in developing those coaching practices, right? So they just add that value when they're supporting the staff and your programs in very, very different ways. Okay. So some of the things that get in the way of coaching, which I'm sure This list is a very short list for, some feedback opportunity that you guys can give of what are some of those things that get in the way of coaching in the wraparound world, right? As we always have so many competing priorities, like we like to say, right? So time, definitely. It's only sometimes 40, 60 hours in our work week. I'm not even going to keep it at 40 because we all know we work well above those 40 hours with, how we're supporting families, how we're supporting our staff. But time is definitely a challenge, right? But how do we, again, build in those structures and have that consistency? So many of you have said and have mentioned learning, staying open, staying in this culture of learning. Every wraparound program, every wraparound space, we all should be, reinforcing and keeping that culture of learning present, right? Because we learn every single day from our family, from our staff. Every single day is a new experience. So many things change all the time, in wraparound and in how we do wraparound. So it's so important that we're building in the time to create those structures, to create those spaces. Fear, right? Oftentimes, there's going to be a fear of, do I know how to coach? Do I know how to have those conversations? Staff may be fearful and thinking, you know what? I know what this coaching is all about. It's just another way to monitor, to micromanage me, or to evaluate me, or use it for, performance and productivity related issues. So again, how are we making those clear distinctions for staff so that it's not that, and we're not weaponizing those coaching spaces, but instead supporting staff. So, resistance, that's how we're going to see the resistance. Skill gaps. Maybe sometimes, our staff don't trust those coaches in those roles or don't feel like they have the relevant or long enough experience to be able to hear some of those strategies or to be able to take in and receive, what they have to say as coaching, right? Or maybe some of our coaches don't feel confident to be in that role yet. So again, how are we connecting, our staff to some of those trainings and to help build some of those skill sets? Confusion with supervision. Again, we talked about that a little bit, where sometimes it's happening in the same space and maybe, we're thinking we're coaching, but that's not how the staff is receiving it, right? A lot of the times, let's be honest, in our organizations, we're going to prioritize productivity over development. Or even if we say we're not, ask your staff, ask for that feedback. How are they feeling about it? How are they receiving it? And is that how they feel? We get that a lot. One of the biggest changes that we always get feedback on, what is one thing you want to change about wraparound? All the paperwork, the documentation, right? It's the number one feedback. So again, how do we make that time, for coaching? Unclear expectations. Staff may not know what coaching looks like or what's expected. So we say, okay, this is your coach, but again, what's the model that we're following? What's that aligned language and structure that we're saying in our organization? This is our coaching model, and this is how, we're going to tackle it, and this is how staff, are growing and what they're taking away from it, how we're tracking progress, all of those things, right? How are we bringing clarity to what we're saying coaching is within our organizations and our programs? Any other barriers that are not mentioned here that you all can think of that get in the way of coaching? Because I'm sure there's a lot, and I haven't been able to see the chat, Donnie, so if you see them, let me know.
There's been a lot of appreciation. We've been dropping all of the documents this morning that have been mentioned are here in the chat. If you are unable to grab the documents here, they will be available, all of them, with the recording on our website. So you can get them there along with the resource doc that has all of the links. There have been a couple of questions around dropping PDF versions of those links. We're not going to drop that because we encourage you to go to our website and actually go into the standards and go into the toolkit. So you got to do a little bit of work, team. Just a tiny bit, because there's so much there. I am going to ask James to drop our evaluation now because we're getting towards the end of time. We have about 15 minutes left. Annabelle and Rebecca, please don't click that X at the top of the evaluation because it will disappear. For our participants, please fill out that evaluation. We do read them, we do go through them, and we do take your feedback. It will take a few minutes to fill it out as we're asking those questions. It will take a few weeks for this recording to get on our website along with those documents. We will answer any questions. Send us an email, Teams me, beat me if you want to reach me. We are available for you. I do want to reiterate that I did put in the chat, all of our classes offered at the Resource Center for Family Focused Practice are free. There is no cost. So the 2 coaching classes that we put in the links, those are coming up and available for free. I also dropped, I forget the date exactly, but it's in May. We do have a neuroscience for trauma class coming up. So please look for that. There was so many neuroscience nerds in here that were just getting all warm and fuzzy. So please look for that class. And with that, I will leave it back. If anybody has any questions, Annabelle, there weren't any in chat, but I encourage you to come on in, come off mute, and use these last few minutes while you can with Rebecca and Annabelle. Thank you.
Any barriers or struggles that you all have seen?
I was going to say, I know a barrier for a new supervisor who might be struggling around bringing up something that may be a little uncomfortable if you were previously a peer and now you're a supervisor.
Right.
How do we promote staff how do we get supervisors in this field? We promote the staff that was doing their job the best. Does that mean that they're a great supervisor? Not necessarily, right? And not that they won't be great at it, but do they have the skills? Have we given them the knowledge? Have they received coaching? Right? Like, what are those steps? And how do we support them to do that?
Christina did have a question in the chat. How to move into coaching after supervising for years?
That's a great question. I think the answer is you got to tell people what's up. You tell them, hey, I want to start coaching. I've been supervising forever. You know, I really want to shift gears. I want to do some more coaching. And I'm going to be clear with you. This is what coaching looks like. This is what it is. And this is how you'll know when we're in a coaching conversation or a supervising conversation. So one of the things that you always want to do is schedule those separately, right? Try not to be like, oh, I'm supervising now, I'm coaching now, I'm back in supervision, and your staff like, and they're like, I don't know if I'm in trouble or if that was like some really good feedback that I'm supposed to try on, or right. So have clarity. And I think you have clarity by saying it, being transparent, letting your staff know. Same thing if you're going to try on some new coaching skills. So if you've been a coach for a while and you're like, oh, that's really cool questions I want to integrate into my coaching, tell your staff, be like, hey, I want to do a session today. I'm going to try some new skills. If it feels different or weird, or if, there's some awkward pauses, give me a minute. It's okay. I'm doing the same thing you are. I love that. Transparency and integrity. Any other barriers you all have seen?
They're all filling out the evaluation. I gave them homework.
They're busy.
They're doing great.
You're totally fine. Time. I didn't see anyone say time, which to me is like, that's such a big one, right? We have to actually like slow down and stop and give the time. Coaching takes time. You cannot do coaching in a 5-minute conversation or when you're walking down the hallway, right? This is a intentional conversation that takes time and it has to be intentionally scheduled. And that's probably one thing we're all short on all the time, right? Is that time. Yep.
I do love what Jessica wrote. She says reluctance to try something new. And I think about those staff that have been around for a real long time and appreciate their way.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah. I'm either afraid to try something new or
can I chime in?
Yeah, totally.
I have been under a person that I've trained for 3 years. They're now coaching me, and it's been a blast because I'm learning what was learned from what I've taught and what has learned from the experience of what was gathered from me. And we have it's like a father-daughter relationship right now because she's in her late 20s. I'm not going to tell you how old I am, but it's just been great learning from her and her understanding. I want you to teach me what you learn so that I can do a better job with the next person or the next group. And so it's been a really good 3 years. And I told her I don't know how much longer I'm going to be able to sit under her because she has so much to give. She should be teaching others. So I'm encouraging her to branch out and pull some other people in because she has done so well, so well. And so I think that as a supervisor, you want to learn from those that you have poured into. It's important to hear them as a teacher. It's so important because you know what you've done now and you know how well you've done, but you also see where you can improve. Because I'm always looking to see, okay, what can I do better? And I tell her, tell me when I'm wrong. Tell me when you don't agree. I think those are important things to, as a supervisor, to have, because what we said here today, we're equal. So in order for me to take new liaisons and really help them, I'm learning from this one. And it's been fun. It's been fun. That's why I said this has been so great for me. I don't know if you guys keep seeing me wipe my eyes. I've been weeping. It's just, it's always good to learn. I think that's the one thing that life gives us is the ability to learn. It's like reading a book over and over. There's books that I read over and over because I get something out of it every time I read. It's something that I didn't get last time. Even though I took notes, I didn't get last time, but I got this time. And so hearing you guys has just been such a blessing for me today. I've learned so much, so much. It's such a pleasure to sit and listen. Thank you.
Thank you. That's amazing. We don't always get the feedback. We like do the training, do the webinar, hang up. We're like, oh man, I hope they took something away. So it's just great to hear.
As you were talking, Frederick, too, I was thinking, especially the younger staff that come in that are fired up and are in it to win it. We have to stop and listen and see what they're doing and what they're moving and shaking, right? I am also old. We call it older, Frederick. I am older and I get stuck, and so I want to look and see what they're doing because it's amazing things. Yeah, our younger generation are moving and shaking. So I agree with you for sure. And James is going to repost the evaluation again if some of you might have clicked the X. So it's there. I'm looking in the chat for you ladies now.
Thank you. Look, here's a few of the takeaways. We've talked about it. I know we've talked a lot. I've said a million times on this webinar that you can't just coach 5 minutes down the hallways. And if you're doing really good intentional coaching where you have those great sessions, then you actually can do some great 5-minute coaching in the hallway, but only if you have the actual sessions and they're planned and they're structured and they're going well. Then you can incorporate those little moments, right? Those little 5 minutes like, maybe have you thought about, and you can send your staff going, oh, right. But that only comes when you're doing coaching where it should be first, right? So we want to just really be mindful about that. So use your models, build that trust, keep the trust going all the time, right? That's like where we want to live and breathe. If you don't know anything about Brene Brown, go to her website and start poking around, read her books. It's great. She's got great stuff on building trust. You want to build that trust. This all starts, the trust is our foundation, right? And then we want to reframe coaching as an investment. So if you're a county, you're an administrator, you're someone who's doing contracts, you're like, oh man, I don't know about this coaching thing. Like, where in the budget does it fit? Why would I do it? This is a lot of time and effort that I'm having people put into it. Where do I invest my money? It's in the coaching, right? Because one-off trainings are not that successful without some sort of follow-up. So you need that coaching. It improves your performance long-term. It reduces bumps in the road that we see, and it improves the outcomes in for youth and families. And that's why we're here, right? We're showing up for youth and families. Anything we can do to give those youth and families a better experience, let's do them, right? Let's support our staff. And we do that through giving the staff the support they need in that coaching. And then shared language. We didn't get into this much today, but everybody, if you say, I'm going to coach, they should know what that means. You're going to say, hey, let's try on. What does that mean? What does that trigger? Like, give yourself words. We use Brene Brown for a lot of our language here at UC Davis at the Resource Center. And so we'll do things like, hey, we're going to have a rumble. We're going to do this or that, right? So it like gives us a shared language where when I say that term, everybody on my team knows what I'm talking about. It takes the pressure off and it makes this so much easier, right, to go forward. And then it gives us those moments to be funny and have fun. All right, we're going to end today. Whoop, I ended the PowerPoint, my bad. We're going to end today with a bit of a reflection. So Annabelle, I don't know if you could fix the slide. It won't let me do it now. I've got black on my end. There we go. Oh, there we go. Thank you. All right. John Wooden has 8 laws of learning. So if you don't know who John Wooden is, he's a basketball coach from way back when, one of the most famous coaches of all time. And his coaching was solely from, here's my life philosophy and how it shows up in basketball, right? And so he lived and breathed a lot of this. He's got his 8 laws of learning: explanation, demonstration, initiation, and then lots of repetition, right? So we're just adding in, that is exactly true. And we're adding in reflection, because what we do is heartfelt and in our heads, and there's so much skill involved. You need the reflection in there as well. So as we wrap up here today, I want you to take just a few minutes, reflect on what you've learned, reflect about what you think about, write down a takeaway. For realies, don't be me, because I have been this person so many times in trainings, and I'm trying now that I'm actually the one teaching them to do it. Actually write it down and bring it with you. Don't just stare at us out of the screen and then be like, oh, I did it, right? But what are you going to take away from this? What are you going to incorporate? What are you going to do moving forward? What stood out to you today? I'll give you just a minute to write that down, and then you can feel free to share it in the chat or pop it out loud. Or if not, you can just keep it for yourself and just post it up somewhere where you can see on it and think about it and reflect it as you go through your week.
While you all are writing down your reflections and doing your homework, I would like to take the opportunity to thank Janine Lesueur, our partner at the California Department of Social Services, the Family Center Practice Unit. It is not without their guidance and true partnership that we are not here where we are today, providing you with these monthly webinars, the classes, the courses, the technical assistance. If you would like to reach out, I will pop their email in the chat. CDSS does join us in all of our technical assistance. They have their hands in all of our curriculum, all of the webinars. It is a true partnership. So Janine, thank you for this morning. And I just want to say to both Annabelle and Rebecca, your information, your presentation, your guidance, and just the love that you pour out into everybody that attends any space that you are in. Thank you so very much. I highly encourage you to see both Rebecca and Annabelle in the Coaching Institute for Wraparound. It will be starting soon. There is a series of 3 classes. Please, please, please take full advantage. And if you have peers in your organization or county, both youth or parent, best practice is to have their supervisor have lived experience. I'm hearing across the state that clinical supervisors are supervising our peers, and that is not best practice. So that is my soapbox, and I'm dropping it here. And please provide space for your peers to become supervisors. Give them the love and the guidance and support they need to be able to supervise those underneath them. And with that, if anybody would like to share their reflection, I open up the forum and I invite you in. Right, it is 10:59. If you feel the evaluation, please take a moment for yourself. You can pop onto your next meeting, but self-care is proactive, not reactive. So take a break, at least 15 minutes. Go get some coffee, do a chore, go walk outside, get some fresh air. The work isn't going anywhere. They knew you were going to be in a webinar. Katie, I see you. Have a great day. Frederick, you were such a joy and a pleasure. I want to see you in the sandbox again. Thank you so much for all of your contributions. Vanessa, always great. Jennifer Hunter, I did see you. Catherine, Glenda, and for all of those I'm seeing for the first time, so glad you're here today. Have a fantastic day. This will all be posted on our website, and we will see you next time.